Hello everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for some seed sowing. Now these are the seeds that I'm sowing at this time of year in February. Just be aware that if you live in a different climate to me and maybe don't have the ability to keep these indoors for a few weeks before they go out into a cold frame or a clutch, then you may want to do yours at a different time. But this is what works for me in this area this year with the space I've got and all of the rest of it. So today I'm going to be sowing my brassicas, or my first wave of brassicas, and these will be put indoors on a windowsill area for a few weeks until they get to a certain size, sort of a few inches high, and then they will be going out into a cold frame or a clutch, weather permitting. If we're experiencing really cold weather like -6, -7, then they won't be going outside. Unlikely, but possible. If the weather, however, is, you know, quite warm for the time of year, staying above freezing, etc., then they'll be okay in a cold frame, as long as they're covered, protected a little bit from the frost. Now, most of the brassicas family are quite happy with cooler temperatures, so the odd night, if it drops below freezing, isn't going to hurt them, provided they're under cover. So I'm going to be sowing cauliflower, spinach, kale, broccoli and cabbage. And you saw at the beginning of the video, all I've done is filled these little pots in this module tray with last year's spent compost that I used to grow potatoes in, mixed with some vermiculite. And I've mentioned how I do this in many videos before, so I'm not going to go through it again. So first one I'm going to sow is some cauliflower, and I'm going to sow what I grew last year, which is all year round variety. And all I've done is I've used a Sharpie pen to make some little indents in the compost, probably about 8 or 10 millimeters deep, which is plenty deep enough. Probably you could get away with less than that in all honesty, but that'll be fine. Now, calabrese seeds, brassica seeds, calabrese sprouts, cauliflower, etc., are pretty small, so you don't want to plant them too deep. And I work on the basis, the smaller the seed, the shallower the planting. The bigger the seed, something like a broad bean, then I'd plant that probably up to about 2 inches deep. So cauliflower seeds, I'm going to try and get one in each, but I'm not worried if two go in. And then I will snip off the weaker seedling as they come through. And the other thing is, I might not get 100% germination anyway. So out of these, I think there's 8 pots there, I might only get 5 that come up. So always over sow. Now this is my first wave, as I said. I will sow some more, probably towards the back end of this month, maybe March. And I always over sow with brassicas because the slugs love them. So if you plant 10 out, you might get 5 that survive, certainly in my garden anyway. So it's always worth over sowing. Don't plant them all out either, keep some back as spares. Let the slugs have a feed, kill the slugs, and then put the next lot out. So that's cauliflower. I'm going to sow some spinach, because we do like spinach. It's nice, either steamed on a roast dinner or on a salad. The spinach seeds are a little bit bigger, a bit easier to handle. So again, one of each. Now, good time of year to sow spinach, because if we have a hot spring, hot May, etc., they'll probably bolt. Spinach, I find, bolts really easy. You can still keep eating it if it's bolted. And for those that don't know, bolting means it will flower early. So you can eat it, but the leaves get smaller and you get less crop. So get them in the ground, get them sown now in this area. I'm in Shropshire, in the sort of the middle of the UK, and get them out in the ground as early as possible. Again, it's pretty cold tolerant, so good time of the year to get them going. So that's the spinach. I've only sown 4 of those. I'll do some more again in a while. I will probably duplicate this tray again in a few weeks time. Cabbage. So I'm going to sow 2 varieties of cabbage. I'm going to sow Savoy, and I do need to write another label. I thought I'll prepare myself, get all my labels written so I don't bore you guys watching me write out labels and fill in pots and things, and I've forgotten to do one, so I will have to do that. And these seeds really are quite small, so there we go. We don't eat a lot of cabbage, so I'm not going to go mad. But again, successional sowing. So that's cabbage, cauliflower and spinach. That's done. I'm just going to put Savoy on that label. And I need to write another label because I'm also going to sow some red cabbage. Calibos. So we'll get those in. That's those. So I was going to try and get outside today and do some weeding and get another bed prepared, but it is raining, so I thought I'd get some seeds sown instead. And then kale. This is curly kale. Again, like spinach, it's nice to have on a roast dinner. Or you can eat it raw, salads, etc. Can't get into the packet. There we go. Excuse me. Now with your kales and brassicas, etc., it's important to label them up because all seeds look, to me, I couldn't tell the difference between a cauliflower seed and a calabrese seed or a sprout seed. They all look very, very similar, and so do the young plants. So if you don't label them up, you're probably going to get in the muddle. And then last of all, broccoli. Now I'm going to sow a lot of broccoli. I'm going to sow 16 of these because we really like broccoli and it is susceptible to the slugs, so I expect to lose quite a few. Now you could just sow these straight into a seed tray. You don't have to put them in little pots. I'm doing it like this to save me a job of pricking out excuse me, in a few weeks time. It's just one step that I don't have to do. Now you do need to be careful that you don't overwater, because when they're in, the little seedlings are in a big pot, their roots aren't filling the pot. So if that compost gets really damp around the seedling roots, and that water isn't used up by the plant, it can have a detrimental effect. So sparingly water, as long as they're just damp, they'll be fine. I'll put these somewhere fairly warm, back bedroom sort of thing, south facing window, excuse me, until they germinate, and leave them there for a few weeks just to come on, and then, like I say, I'll harden them off a bit and they'll go off into the cold frame. So all I've got to do now, cover these over. I'm not going to water these because this compost is pretty damp already. I'll check them again in a few days, and if they need a little bit of water, I'll give them some. So that is the first lot of sowings I'm going to do today. Now the next lot is peas. Actually, I'm going to do mange too. The reason being, if you grow peas, you've got all the effort of shelling them, and that takes quite a long time. So we grow mange too because you can just eat the whole pod. Well, you can actually eat normal pea pods, but it's stringy. So we grow mange too for that reason, and we normally do pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to put the peas and mange too in these pots. These are probably a 3-inch pot, and that's how I tend to do the peas, because it just gives me a few weeks before I have to do anything with them. I don't need to plant them out yet or anything like that. There's enough room in the pot to let them get to a reasonable size before planting them out. Peas are quite tolerant to the cold, so good time of the year to get them going. It's a crop that you can get going pretty early, and they're quite easy to grow. Slugs do attack them, so be mindful of that, and they will need something to grow up, either some canes or a fence or some string or something like that that they can get their tendrils onto and grow up. So I'm going to get the packet and we'll go from there. So unfortunately the builders are making a noise next door. Hopefully it isn't interfering with the video too much. So mange too, variety brassica or something like that, I think. We grew these last year and they were pretty good. So I've done the same as before. I've made a hole, only this time about 2 centimeters deep, about 1 inch ish, and because pea seeds are a lot bigger than broccoli seeds and what have you, so I'm just going to put 1 in each. Now you could soak these in water before you sow them if you wanted to. I never bother, I just do this. But yeah, you could soak them in water and chick them, so when you start to see a little shoot come out the seed, then you plant it. But I don't bother doing that. There might be 2 in some of those, but that's fine. And then just cover them over, same as the other seeds. I'll write a label, and I might put these outside to get a bit of rainwater. So these I'm not going to put in the house. Temperatures for us at the moment aren't too bad, so I'm going to leave these in an unheated greenhouse. But I will keep my eye on the weather, and if it is going to drop really cold, I'll bring them in. Now I'm going to need a slightly warmer temperature to get these to germinate, so like I say, if it's going to drop cold, I'll bring them indoors. But at the moment we're having quite a mild January. That said, we might have snow for a night later in the week, but we'll see. Keep your eye on the weather and play it by ear. Okay guys, thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoyed this content and you'd like to see more, please subscribe, hit the like button and then click all, and you'll get notified every time I upload a video. Cheers.